So good evening, everyone. And if you are watching this on catch up, thank you for listening in on catch up as well. I'm going to share with you over the next 35 to 40 minutes how you can go from feeling fed up to feeling fabulous, basically, in 3 easy steps. One of my absolute missions is to break down how we have been fed a lie as far as our health is concerned, or particularly our weight is concerned, as women in our midlife. And one of the things I really want to do is help you understand that yes, starting with weight management and feeling good in our clothes and feeling better when we look in the mirror is that first step. But actually, when we get into midlife, we need to be looking at our longevity and thinking about all the actions we can take to help us live a longer, fuller, healthier life. It's estimated that those people that put these steps I'm going to share with you into place now in midlife will live up to 15 years longer, and will live up to 15 years longer feeling healthy and being able to do lots of things. Those people that don't put some of these actions into place, that don't start to lay the foundations now at that midlife stage, will find themselves struggling with pain later in life, will find themselves struggling with ability to be able to move around, etc., etc. Maybe some kind of cognitive decline and that kind of thing as well. So the things I'm going to share with you now are absolutely the first place to start when it comes to managing our waistline and feeling good in our summer clothes. But actually, they're the things that, if we do them long term, and they're not difficult, I promise you, if we do them long term, we're going to be laying some really solid foundations for a healthy, longer life. Basically, that means we can do more, we can be more, we can see more, we can live life to the full, basically. So we're not just talking about weight loss here. We're talking about everything that goes with it. Always, for us women, weight loss is where we want to start, but actually let's see it as something that is moving us forward to living a longer, healthier life as well. Before I start, just want to share with you a little bit more about me. So I call myself the Low Sugar Weight Loss Coach, and I work with midlife women basically to show them how to manage their weight effortlessly by reducing their sugar intake, because that is the first place to start when we want to achieve long-term, easier, effortless weight loss, when we want to achieve more energy, when we want to have more confidence. I am a nutritional therapist, but I was also a personal trainer, and I've always worked with women all the way through my career as the last 23 years. And I show women how easy it is. I'm absolutely passionate about breaking down the myths in the wellness industry and showing women the easy, simple ways to achieve long-term well-being. I want to tell you just a little story before we start about how I got into this in the first place. I was a personal trainer, and I was pretty much full on. I was working full time. I had 3 children at the time. I still have 3 children, but I had 3 children at home at the time. And life was busy. Life was really busy. I had a very busy studio. I had 3 children, all of school age, and I was juggling lots and lots of balls. And my husband worked full time, and it was full on. And I found myself in 2013 as a result of a few things that had happened in 2009. I found myself in 2013 heading to burnout, and I was exhausted all of the time. I was eating rubbish because I thought and believed that the sugar would give me the energy to get through the afternoon to train my clients. I was reaching for snacks all the time, and often unhealthy snacks, like they eat natural bars and all that kind of thing, because I thought they were healthy. And I was taken asleep in the afternoon. I was exhausted, and I would finish with a client. I'd have a 20-minute nap before I went to get the children from school. I was not walking the talk. I had put on weight, and I felt in myself really fed up. And I knew that I was going through wasn't right. And I was, looking back on it now as well, perimenopausal. I was about 43 at the time, and maybe 44. Yeah, I have to think about it. But anyway, I was perimenopausal. I didn't realize at the time I was perimenopausal, but I was really, really struggling. And I decided something had to change. I couldn't carry on like this. I didn't want to carry on in this place where I wasn't functioning for everybody around me, and I certainly wasn't functioning for my clients. So I went to see a nutritional therapist, and she was like, "Well, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to get rid of that sandwich that you are eating at lunchtime." And I was like, what? That's the thing that gives me the energy through the afternoon. And she said, actually, it doesn't. It doesn't give you the energy through the afternoon. It's causing you to have that sleep before you go and pick up the children from school. And she explained why having the sandwich at lunchtime was causing my energies to crash. And once I understood that, I really kind of like going, okay, I'm going to give this a go and see what happens. So I took everything out of the sandwich and I avoided the bread and I just turned it into a big salad with loads and loads of protein on it. And I was blown away by how much more energy I had in the afternoon. And that was what sparked my interest. That was what sparked my desire to find out more about what was going on for me as far as perimenopause was concerned, but also what was going on for me as far as my blood glucose levels, my insulin, the blood sugar hormone insulin was concerned, and why I was feeling as fed up as I was. And what did I need to do to become the person that I used to be before I crashed into perimenopause in style, kind of thing. So I went on a journey. I went on a journey of healing my own health and getting my blood sugars balanced. I did a little bit of work on my gut health as well, and I never really looked back. And as a result, haven't suffered with any menopause symptoms at all. I've kept my blood sugars really nice and stable, so no longer need to snack. And at 57 now, feel the best I've felt in a long, long time. So, and for me now, it's about breaking through those things, those myths of, you need to have that complex carbohydrate at lunchtime in the form of bread to have the energy in the afternoon. Actually, you don't. And there's so many other things that I really feel passionate about showing women how to take back control and how they can feel fabulous. And how they can go from being fed up to being fabulous. So let me ask you a question. Are you struggling with any of these? If you're in a position to be able to put any of the numbers in the chat box, please feel free to. Are you struggling with the afternoon slump? I certainly was with my sleep in the afternoon. Are you struggling with poor sleep 5 out of 7 nights? Do you feel totally controlled by food and sugar cravings and it drives you mad? You don't seem to be able to get your sugar cravings under control. You've got some joint pain maybe and some discomfort. Hunger by mid-morning, even though you've eaten breakfast, you still feel hungry by about 10:30. You've got lack of energy or lack of motivation. You're not functioning very well on a day-to-day basis. You've got weight gain, usually around the middle, that no matter what you do, you never seem to be able to shift. Always starting diets that you can't stick to because they feel too overwhelming. Sugar cravings every evening. So you sit down on the sofa and then you're kind of like the sugar cravings kick in. You find yourself eating a bar of chocolate or something like that. IBS, bloating, or discomfort in the intestine. All of these things are a sign that your blood glucose levels are out of alignment. But what they're doing is making you feel fed up on a day-to-day basis. They absolutely are making you feel like you're dragging your feet through treacle on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, Emma says bloating. There are so many things that we do struggle with on a day-to-day basis. And Tricia says the weight gain, yeah, which is not uncommon at all in midlife. And the bloating is often caused by our liver not working properly. And the weight gain is also often caused by our liver not working properly. Now, our liver is a really important organ in the body. It's about the size of your hand when you open it up like this, and it sits just under that rib cage on the right-hand side. And it is the place that actually in Chinese medicine, the liver is a very emotional organ, and if it's struggling and if it's functioning poorly, it's going to make you feel fed up. It's going to make you feel miserable because it's this emotional organ that is either working on overdrive and going, happy days, I'm loving life, or it's making us feel miserable. It's making us feel fed up. And it's often one of the things that gets missed when it comes to how can I start to manage my weight more effectively? Why am I not managing my weight more effectively? And what do I need to do? Or if I'm, going on a diet and I think I'm going to start losing some weight, but I don't feel good. I don't, I'm not getting a buzz. I'm not getting a good feeling. And that's because your liver's struggling. So the liver is this emotional organ, but it also stores a lot of the excess glucose that the bloodstream that is released into the bloodstream. And as we go through perimenopause and menopause, because the liver is responsible for creating all the raw materials for our progesterone and estrogen, it starts to downgrade other functions. So it will downgrade the release of glycogen, which is the stored form of glucose. You'll downgrade that. It will downgrade the production of the right hormones because there's so many other things going on. And often what we see in midlife as well is women struggling with their metabolism and ending up on thyroxine. And that's because the liver's not working properly. So the first place to start, if we want to start feeling fabulous, is getting our liver working. And it's very easy, actually, to get our liver working more effectively. But one of the signs of blood sugar dysregulation is a fatty liver. And often women will get diagnosed with a fatty liver in their 40s and 50s, and they don't know where this has come from. They might be like, I'm not drunk. That's the kind of thing that an alcoholic would struggle with, all that kind of thing. And it's just a sign that because the liver is struggling, it can't store the sugar and everything gets converted into fats in the liver and it becomes fatty. And we can actually reverse that. The liver is a very powerful organ. It can regrow and it can repair itself if we look after it. So one of the first places we would start is to start looking after our liver, to get ourselves to feel more fabulous, is to start looking after our liver. And with my group, the Feel Fabulous Club, one of the first things I encourage women to do when they come in is to start focusing on liver health and managing and cleansing their liver in a really, really simple way. But the liver is the first place to start if we want to start getting and start feeling better, and start feeling more comfortable in our clothes, but also more feeling better in our mindset as well. Because when we've got the liver on board and we've got the liver clean, that has a real knock-on effect to our emotions. If you're struggling with any of these things here, you can struggle with multiple ones. It doesn't have to be just one or two. It can be as many of them as you kind of feel like on a day-to-day basis. But if we're going to start making some difference, the first place we need to start is with our liver. But that's not one of the 3 steps. It isn't, because it's a little bit more complicated than that, and that's why within the Feel Fabulous Club, it's always the first place to start. But for me, if we're gonna start feeling better in our clothes, we need to start getting our blood sugar balanced. And this is the first place to start, really. The liver cleans up as a result of getting our blood sugars balanced. So for years we have been told that we should eat complex carbohydrates in the form of bread and pasta and all those kind of things that are going to give us energy. Those complex carbohydrates, the food industry have told us that are complex, are actually processed carbohydrates, and they're not actually supporting our liver function. And they're actually making the problem worse, our blood sugar balance, because they're actually making the problem worse, because what they do is they release sugar into the bloodstream really quickly and start to cause a blood sugar roller coaster. So let's delve into sugars in a bit more detail and glucose in a bit more detail, because it absolutely is the first place to start when we want to start feeling better in our skin. And it has a knock-on effect to liver function, because once our blood sugars are balanced, liver can start releasing glycogen and start clearing up all the fatty deposits and start healing itself, basically. And then that has a knock-on effect to our menopause. It has a knock-on effect to our bloating, because bloating always comes from poor liver function. It has a knock-on effect to the quality of our sleep. There's so many things that happen once we get our liver cleaned up. But it's hard to clean your liver up unless your blood sugars are balanced. So this red line that we have here is unbalanced blood sugar. It's insulin, basically, being released. So when we eat anything, no matter what it is, if we eat anything that contains glucose, the body will release insulin from the pancreas. And the purpose of the insulin is to pick up the glucose and take it to the cells for energy production. The mitochondria in the cells will utilize the glucose, and you will have more energy. But if we are eating too much glucose, what ends up happening, so too many sweet things, too many processed carbs, what ends up happening is those carbohydrates get released into the bloodstream very quickly and converted into glucose very quickly. And so the liver then, sorry, the pancreas then will release insulin very quickly. So this red spike here is when we've had, let's take the example of my sandwich at lunchtime. This red spike here, this red increased line here, is where that bread is releasing glucose into my bloodstream very quickly. And my pancreas is then releasing insulin to go and pick up that glucose and take it to the cells for energy production. But if I'm not using that insulin, what ends up happening is that I'm not using the glucose. The insulin has to take the glucose somewhere and store it. And what ends up happening is the cells, the membranes on the cells start to shut down and won't allow the insulin to take the glucose into the cells for energy production. If we're not using the glucose, if we're not moving, then the glucose has to be taken somewhere. And so we have this big crash on the other side here, where insulin takes the glucose out of the bloodstream, takes it to the liver and stores it as fat. And that's when we start to get fatty liver disease. But this point here at the bottom of this crash is where the hunger kicks in, because the brain says, I need to eat something, or you need to eat something. You need to eat it now because there's not enough glucose in the bloodstream, and the brain functions on glucose. So our cravings for sugar then are out of our control because the brain has kicked in. So then we eat something really sugary, reach for a snack. That might be 10:30, for example, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we have this big insulin spike again, where the sugars are released into the bloodstream. The insulin is released by the pancreas. The cells don't want the glucose here at the top. And so insulin will take the sugar out of the bloodstream and take it to the liver, store it as glycogen, and then we have another crash and we might be craving something and wanting to snack again. And so this goes on. Now, what happens when we're on a blood sugar roller coaster like this is your body essentially starts to heat up from the inside out. So not only is it putting pressure on the liver, it's also starting to cause inflammation in the body. Because these big blood sugar swings like this cause what we call free radical damage, is what causes inflammation. And every time we have this big crash like this, we get more free radical damage. And that speeds up the aging process. And what we want to do is we need to try and get rid of these big swings, because it's these big swings that are making us feel low, but are also causing us to put on weight, because we're eating probably more than we realize, but also, and these cravings are kind of out of our control because they're biological as opposed to psychological, because our brain is controlling those cravings. And we find ourselves eating more than we would normally do. But also, if insulin is on this unstable roller coaster like this, insulin is a very dominant hormone. And it causes, if insulin is high, it causes the release of a hormone called ghrelin that tells us we're hungry. So we're always reaching for food, particularly if we're on a kind of calorie-controlled diet that is carbohydrate-based. Carbohydrates are going to cause this big spike in sugars. Then we're going to have a crash. We're going to want to eat something. So we might eat a calorie-controlled cereal bar, for example, which is then going to cause another big rise in blood glucose levels. And all the time that this is going on, we might be in a calorie deficit, but we won't lose weight, because one, ghrelin is telling us we're hungry and we want to eat more, which is a kind of mental, it messes with your mental health. But also, when insulin is high, it acts as a fat storing hormone. So it won't allow the body to burn fat for fuel. So if you've ever gone on a diet on a Monday morning and gone, I've got to get some of this weight off, I'm going on holiday, or I want to get in my summer clothes, and 3 weeks in, you feel like you've been really, really controlled, and you've been keeping to your calorie deficit and all this kind of thing, but 3 weeks in, the scales haven't shifted, that is because you're on a blood sugar roller coaster, and with insulin being high, you're always going to store fat. You're never going to burn that fat. We need to get insulin balanced. So let's just talk a little bit more about glucose and understand how glucose impacts the body. And then we can go into how do I get my glucose balance then. So we have this, what I call a glucose spectrum. It's not a technical term by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a term that I made up basically. But it's a really useful way of showing you how glucose is metabolized in the body. So at one end of the spectrum, we've got these colorful greens, reds, and oranges. Fruits and vegetables basically that are full of fiber, but also release glucose into the bloodstream very, very slowly, because the body has to break down the glucose because it's all in its normal natural form. And then on the other end of the scale, we've got the beige and the white. So breads and pastas, and the white cakes, biscuits, cookies, chocolate, and alcohol on the other end of the spectrum. And that end of the spectrum, that glucose is already broken down for you. So it will release sugars into the bloodstream very, very quickly. So that will cause a very quick spike in blood glucose levels and a quick spike in insulin if the majority of your carbohydrates are coming from that beige and white end of the spectrum. If the majority of your carbohydrates are coming from the colourful end of the spectrum, not only does the body have to work harder to break down the glucose to access, so it's a much slower release of glucose, so therefore a much slower release of insulin, the fibres in the food will help to line the stomach, slow stomach emptying time, and help us to feel fuller for longer, basically. So we want to get a lot of our carbohydrate from this fibrous end of the glucose spectrum. But also the benefits of getting the glucose from that colourful end of the spectrum means they contain nutrients that will neutralize that inflammation that I mentioned earlier. That heating up of the body from the inside out is the natural aging process. But by having food from this colourful end of the spectrum, you can begin to slow that aging process down, so that what you've got then is not only nutrients that are going to keep your blood sugars really nice and steady, but also going to help to reduce inflammation in the body, get rid of joint pain, that kind of thing, and help you to live a longer, fuller life, and help you to manage your weight more effectively, because you'll stay fuller for longer. Insulin is steady, so we don't release ghrelin, and obviously ghrelin being the hunger hormone, the hormone that tells us we're hungry. We release more leptin, which is a hormone that tells us we're full and it's okay to burn fat for fuel. So when our insulin is steady, we can actually be a much more effective fat burner. So what we want to achieve is we want to be making sure that we're on the colourful end of this spectrum rather than on the beige and white. And when I was having my sandwich at lunchtime, I was definitely on that beige and white end of the spectrum, and that would lead me to feeling tired in the afternoon. It would lead me to snacking on foods that, yes, I thought was within my calorie controlled zone, but actually I was not doing myself any favors at all. I couldn't get my weight under control. I couldn't get my tiredness under control. I was putting on weight even though I felt like I was in calorie deficit. But it was all because my insulin was out of balance. So what we want to achieve with weight management, these big swings like this are when we are eating from that beige and white end of the spectrum. What we want to actually achieve is this blue line here. This blue line here is when we're eating from the colourful end of the spectrum. This blue line stays within this kind of these parameters that mean that the brain still has plenty of glucose, and the glucose is released very slowly and very steadily into the bloodstream, which means insulin is released very slowly. And then we don't get these crashes where we reach for snacks. We feel fuller for much longer. Our insulin stays really steady. We keep ghrelin under control, and we release more leptin that allows us to burn fat for fuel. And particularly for women in midlife, we need to have we need to have balanced insulin, because we won't burn that fat. We'll just keep on putting weight on. But also, when we have balanced insulin, gradually the liver starts to release more and more glycogen that's stored in the liver. It starts to get healthier, which then helps us to feel better about ourselves. And we start to go from feeling fed up and overweight and dragging our feet through treacle, getting our insulin balanced by eating all those more colourful foods and trying to avoid the beige and the white foods, and getting to a point where our liver starts to release glycogen, starts to clean up, and that emotional side of the liver will make us feel better. So we can start to feel more confident in our clothes because we lose a little bit of weight. We might lose that bloating. We just start to feel better in ourselves. Our IBS comes under control. Our skin maybe starts to glow. Our eyes become brighter. And we start to feel much better in ourselves. When our blood sugars are out of balance, we can struggle with brain fog, particularly brain fog, actually, because when blood glucose is out of balance, we can have a lot of waste products, a lot of waste glucose being deposited in the brain that kind of causes us to kind of not see things clearly. Our mood is low because our liver's not working properly. We can struggle with the afternoon slump and lack of productivity, lack of focus, less energy, poor sleep, autoimmune conditions like maybe gut health issues with gut health, but also things like what am I looking for? Autoimmune conditions, lupus, and things like that. Anything basically that is our body starts to attack itself. IBS symptoms, joint pain, lack of confidence and anxiety, weight gain that never shifts, and generally feeling fed up, basically. When our blood sugars are out of balance, those are the consequences. But when we get our blood sugars balanced and we start to get the liver working more effectively, that's when we can go to feeling more fabulous. We can go from feeling fed up to fabulous. Now, I just want to bring in a couple of things here as well for you to be aware of. Because when we go into a calorie deficit, we think, well, it's okay, I'll have diet drink. I won't have the full fat drink. I'll have a diet drink. And the diet drinks, the sweeteners in diet drinks are just as bad as sugar, because anything that hits your tongue that is sweet will cause the pancreas to release insulin. And that release of insulin means that when insulin rises high in the system, it's going to create more ghrelin, which is going to tell you you're hungry. Also, the sweeteners have to be manufactured by the liver, so it puts more pressure on the liver, and the liver struggles to function even further. All the sweeteners, the body can't metabolize those sweeteners, so the liver has to process them, and it often will store them, particularly things like high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that. They're all stored, they're all metabolized and stored in the liver, and that again can contribute to fatty liver disease. So rather than focusing on counting calories and thinking I need to get my calories under control, I really want you to think about how can I bring my need for sweetness down. And the other thing I want to talk about as well is low fat foods, because again, the diet industry has had us convinced for years and years and years that the way to manage our weight is to go low fat, because the diet industry has convinced us that low fat equals, if we eat fat, we'll get fat. And that absolutely isn't true. Fat doesn't have a relationship with insulin at all. So if you eat good quality fats, you will keep your blood sugars really nice and balanced, which means you'll produce more leptin that allows you to burn fat for fuel. If you're eating products that are low fat, when you remove fat from a product, you have to replace it. You remove the flavor, basically. So you have to replace it with something else. And often they will replace it with sweeteners. So they can keep the calorie amount down by going low fat, because there's 9 calories per gram of fat compared to 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. So what they can do is they can keep the calorie amount low by removing the fat. So still focusing on counting calories, but they put lots of sweeteners in. It's because they've removed the fat and there's no flavor. So they put the sweeteners in. And then when you eat it, you might be eating something that's, below 100 calories, but actually those sweeteners cause the release of insulin from the pancreas. Insulin rises in the system and ghrelin rises, tells us we're hungry, and insulin will stop you burning fat for fuel. So all the things that we've been told about how to lose weight actually don't work for women in midlife. They don't actually work, full stop. They might do to begin with. You might lose a few pounds, but actually usually what that is water retention. If you are on a blood sugar roller coaster still, weight loss will become very difficult. It will be hard, it will be slow, and it will be demoralizing. You really want to focus on making sure that you're focusing more on nutrients. You're focusing more on the colors. You're not focusing on counting the calories. You really want to focus on counting the nutrients. Make sure your plate is full of colors and stop worrying about fat. Fat's really important for the body. All the synapses in the brain are connected by fats, by good fats. So you want to go avocados and seeds and nuts and all the things that the slimming clubs have told us we're not allowed to eat because they're high in calories, actually, from a fat perspective, are really important for long-term well-being. So you really want to be thinking about where are all those hidden sugars that I could consume in my diet that are causing my blood sugars to rise, which is influencing how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, but also my ability to manage my weight more effectively. So how do you go from fed up to fabulous? Because if your liver is struggling, you've put weight on around the middle, you feel bloated, you're not feeling good in yourself, you're feeling like you're dragging your feet through treacle every day, you may be not sleeping very well, you're tired on a regular basis, none of the clothes that you've got feel like very comfortable anymore, you don't look at yourself in the mirror and think you look great. Mentally you're feeling drained. How do you go from feeling fed up like that to feeling fabulous? Well, I said there was 3 steps, but actually I'm going to give you 2 bonus ones as well, because it's not just about oh, just do these 3 things and it'll make a difference. We've got to put some simple actions in place, and we've got to do them consistently, and that's key. The simple, consistent actions are the ones that are sustainable, but they are also the ones that get the best results long term. Trying to follow a program, a crash diet, or a restrictive program, calorie controlled diet where you have to count your macros and goodness knows what else, you're not going to be able to sustain it. Life is way too busy for all of that kind of thing. So it's got to be something that is simple. And for me, when I was encouraged by the nutritional therapist that I went to see to get rid of that sandwich, and I started to think about my nutrition and how I was nourishing myself, I knew it needed to be simple. It couldn't be complicated, because if it was complicated, I wouldn't follow it and I wouldn't stick to it. So I knew that anything I did needed to be simple. So this is what I did, and this is what I still do. And I make sure I do it every single day. And it is those foundational pieces that make all the difference. They really do. It may not give you the change that you want in 7 days, but believe me, there isn't anything that will help you achieve that. You've got to focus on doing these consistent things on a long-term basis, but making them sustainable. So eat protein for breakfast. First thing in the morning, your stomach is full of hydrochloric acid. And hydrochloric acid is designed to break down protein. It is not designed to break down carbohydrates. So if you are eating a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast, like Weetabix with a banana, or porridge, or not always porridge, some people are not too bad with porridge, or toast, or cereal, Special K being one of them, because again, that's the food industry trying to convince us that counting calories is the way to go. Actually, that carbohydrate first thing in the morning will cause your blood sugars to massively spike, because first thing in the morning, when your stomach is full of hydrochloric acid, it will break down carbohydrate very quickly and release sugars into your bloodstream very quickly. So if I go back up to this slide here, this first spike is when we've had 2 slices of toast for breakfast, or when we've had a bowl of cereal for breakfast. That hydrochloric acid, it's broken down that carbohydrate very quickly, and it's released sugars into the bloodstream very quickly, and the insulin has been released. So instantly we start on a blood sugar roller coaster. Instantly we start with this big spike, and then by 10:30 we are hungry and we need to eat something to snack on. And 9 times out of 10, if we're trying to manage our weight, it will be a calorie controlled cereal bar or something like that, which will cause another blood sugar spike here, and then another crash, and we'll get to lunchtime, and then we won't make very good choices around our lunch because our brain is kicking in and going, we've got to have some carbohydrate, we've got to have some glucose to bring the blood glucose levels back up again. But if you have protein for breakfast first thing in the morning here, that protein will release really slowly into your bloodstream. It will keep insulin really steady. You'll have tons of energy through the course of the morning, because every time we crash here, our energy crashes. You'll have tons of energy through the course of the morning, and then you'll make a much better choice at lunchtime about the foods that you're going to eat. And I often say to my clients, if you have two Weetabix, for example, for breakfast, try having just 2 boiled eggs. That's a good, a good alternative, because the boiled eggs will keep you going all through the course of the morning. No toast, just 2 boiled eggs. They'll keep you going all the way through the morning. The cereal, the Weetabix, peak and crash, and you'll be reaching for snacks at 10:30. So the first step we need to think about is to eat protein for breakfast, because that's the thing that's going to give us energy throughout the day. If we don't have that protein for breakfast, our blood sugars are all over the place, and we will be constantly tormenting ourselves around how much we're eating, constantly giving up, but equally as much having these periods of really kind of tiredness where we can't function. And the second step is to make sure you stay hydrated throughout the day. It's really easy to forget to do this. I was talking to someone yesterday who said all she has on a day-to-day basis is half a glass of water. It's not even a pint of water, it's half a pint of water. Your body is like a pot plant. It needs water on a day-to-day basis, and it needs 2 litres of water a day. If you're not hydrated, lack of hydration, dehydration, leads to brain fog, it leads to lack of productivity, it leads to feelings of lethargy and I can't function, and it also leads to hunger. So if your body's not hydrated, you could be, again, feeling like you're dragging your feet through treacle. And that will have a huge impact on how you feel. But also your liver needs fluid to flush things through, to flush away toxins, to keep all the excess hormones out of them, you move them out of the system, to detoxify. And if you're not hydrated, you won't be able to detoxify all the excess hormones and all that kind of thing. And again, your liver is under pressure, and that will have a knock-on effect to how you feel. So a toxic body makes you feel toxic. Your liver is struggling, and it will make you feel miserable, basically. It'll make you feel fed up. When you drink more water, you'll have more mental clarity, you'll have more energy, you'll feel like doing more, and your liver will function effectively. The best way to get more water into you is to break the day down into 4 quarters and go, right, up until 10 o'clock, I'm going to make sure I drink a 500 mils, which isn't actually that much. It's just a 500 ml bottle. From 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock, I'm going to have another 500 mils. And in the afternoon, from 1 till 4, and then a further 500 mils from 4 onwards into the evening. You've already done 2 litres if you break it down into 500 mils. And if you're someone who only does drink half a glass a day, let's go, okay, well, I'm going to drink half a glass a day 4 times in each of those quarters. And then once I'm comfortable with that, I'll add a bit more and a bit more. And we build it up gradually. Because if you try to do it in a way that is overwhelming, you won't keep to it. You've got to focus on building it up gradually. And this is what I do all the time. I teach women how to build these lifestyle habits up gradually so that they don't feel overwhelming and they do feel like they're sustainable and that they can do them long term. And it's these simple habits done long term that are going to have a huge amount of impact as far as your body is concerned. And then, I don't think I recorded it. Did I? Did I hit record? I hope I did. Oh, yeah, I did. All of a sudden, that was a menopause moment there. I thought, did I stop recording? Did I hit recording? Yeah, I did. And then step 3 is to move after you've eaten. And the reason why you need to move, even just for 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be long. And actually, you know what, if you can't move and you're sitting at your desk, for example, the best thing you can do is just move your legs up and down so that your calf muscles engage. I'm actually doing it now as I'm standing here. So that your calf muscles engage. And those muscles are huge. That soleus muscle is huge. And it will really use up some of the insulin that is in the body, being released in the body after you've eaten. Moving after you've eaten gives insulin a purpose. It means that the sugar we've eaten, the glucose that we've eaten, even if it's not sugar heavy, if it's carbohydrate, if there's carbohydrate in there, we will release glucose into the bloodstream. And it means that insulin will be released. And then insulin has a purpose. It will take the glucose to the cells, lend to the cells, and the mitochondria can use it. And again, if you're just moving your calves up and down, moving, you don't even need to calf raises. You could just move from one side to the other and lift one leg up and then the other leg up onto your toes. And that gets the calf muscles working, and that gives insulin a purpose. Insulin can take the glucose to those muscles, and the mitochondria in the cells of those muscles will use that glucose. But that little bit of movement helps to really flatten the glucose curve. It helps to really reduce the impact of any sugar that we've eaten or anything like that. And it will keep us, again, feeling fuller for longer, because it helps to smooth out those big blood sugar swings. It keeps that blue line of blood sugar in between the green dotted lines. So moving after you've eaten, just for even 10 minutes, can have a huge impact on how you feel. It can give you more energy for later on in the afternoon. It irons out the afternoon slump. It can really help. I had one client who was struggling. She was doing my Feel Fabulous method, and she was struggling at lunchtime. She was eating lots of protein at lunchtime, lots of colours, but she was still finding that she was hungry by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we tweaked her diet, we tweaked her lunch, and tried to get it to the point where there wasn't anything in there that could cause a blood sugar spike. And I just said, well, why don't you just go for a walk for 10 minutes? Go for a walk for 10 minutes after you've eaten. And she was blown away by what a difference it made to her need to snack at 4 o'clock. It was completely ironed out. And that was just because it gave insulin a purpose. Insulin didn't rise too quickly in the system. Insulin was able to take the glucose to the cells for energy production. That flatter insulin meant that she wasn't getting on a roller coaster. Insulin was steady. She was burning fat for fuel because the insulin was low, and she didn't have ghrelin being released into the system because, again, insulin was low and steady. So moving after you've eaten can make a huge amount of difference. So 3 things you can do that don't cost you anything. Eat protein for breakfast. Just adjust your breakfast. Make sure you stay hydrated throughout the day. Those 4 500 ml bottles, and move after you've eaten. Now, the 2 bonus things I'd like you to really think about is listen to your body and how food makes you feel. So if you are hungry by 10:30, the breakfast you ate did not work for your body. It's caused a spike and then a crash. And that has meant that your brain has kicked in and told you need to eat something. Your glucose levels have dropped, and that all that glucose has been stored in the liver. So listen to how your body feels. You'll understand as you start to really identify what foods work for you. As you listen to your body, you'll be able to identify and create a bit of a blueprint for yourself as far as foods that help to keep your blood sugars steady. And when your blood sugars are steady, you will start to manage your weight more effectively, or can't start to come under control, and you won't even notice that you're managing your weight. That you won't be on a diet as such. You won't be calorie restricting. You'll be nourishing your body. But you don't get to that point until you start listening. We've stopped listening to the messages our body is telling us. Our body is a very sophisticated machine, and it will tell us. So if you're struggling with bloating, that's a sign that your liver's not working properly. If you're struggling with hunger at 10:30, that's a sign that you're on a blood sugar roller coaster. All these things have our body's telling us these messages all the time, but we stop listening to them because we kind of move at 90 miles an hour. We might reach for a coffee and a muffin on the way into work or whatever. And that isn't how our body functions. Our body needs colourful food. It needs good nutrition, good nutrients to help us function. So listen to your body and how food makes you feel, because then you can begin to identify. If you are feeling tired, sluggish, or bloated within 2 hours of eating something, that food didn't work for you. It's caused a spike and then a crash in blood sugars. And it's insulin and getting insulin under control that is the first place to start. If we want to go from fed up to fabulous, when insulin is under control, that will have an impact on your liver. Liver is an emotional organ, and the liver will start to clean up and improve, and that again will have an impact on how we feel on a day-to-day basis. And then the second bonus is to get a good night's sleep. Nobody gets a good night's sleep anymore. This is our insulin resets through the night when we get a good night's sleep. And this is all completely and utterly related to blue light and how much blue light we're exposed to in the evenings when we're on our phones or on our tablets and what have you. When we are exposed to blue light in the evening, the body reads that as daytime, and then it starts to release cortisol. And cortisol is another hormone that, if it's high in the system, becomes toxic, just like insulin. And if cortisol is high in the system, it won't allow us to go into a deep quality sleep because the body thinks it's daytime. So by getting a good night's sleep, by coming off of tablets and what have you in the evening, getting a good night's sleep, insulin will reset. Cortisol will be released at the right time of day. And I always call insulin and cortisol the ugly sisters of hormones, because both of those two together will absolutely block the burning of fat for fuel. Insulin is a fat storing hormone, but the two hormones together completely block the burning of fat for fuel. So not only do we then have a poor night's sleep, and insulin doesn't reset, so we wake up the next morning with insulin all over the place, but then we've also got cortisol in the mix that stops us burning fat for fuel. They did a study. There was a study done in UCLA, and they gave two groups of people exactly the same diet, exactly the same amount of food, exactly the same amount of calories. One group was allowed to sleep for 8 hours a night, and the other group was only allowed to sleep for 4 hours a night. And the group that only slept for 4 hours a night lost 55% less weight than the group that was sleeping for 8 hours a night. And the weight that group lost was all muscle mass. There was no fat burning. Whereas the group that slept for 8 hours a night were burning fat when they were sleeping. So they were losing weight, but it was fat weight rather than lean tissue, so muscle. So sleep is really important in that overall picture of weight management. But it's also really important for how we feel on a day-to-day basis. If we're tired and can't function, it's going to make us feel fed up. So starting to think about, how can I get a good night's sleep? And one of the modules in my Feel Fabulous Club, so I have the Feel Fabulous method, which is a course within the Feel Fabulous Club. And one of the modules is a sleep module with 5 actions to take to help you sleep better on a daily basis, which will have a knock-on effect of managing weight more effectively. I've got 3 modules. It's a 3-module course. The Feel Fabulous method starts with the nutrients and getting the nutrition right, and the 5 simple actions that you need to take on a daily basis to get blood sugars balanced. Then we go focus on sleep and the 5 simple actions you need to take to improve your sleep. And then we focus on the 5 simple actions to get your head in the right space for feeling better, believing in yourself and telling yourself, having a better conversation in your head. So the Feel Fabulous method implements a lot of the things that I've gone through here. And the result is always a cleaner liver, better blood sugar balance, and much more effective weight management. Can I tell you a little bit about the Feel Fabulous Club? It is a community of women working together to get those basics in place. And it's done with this Feel Fabulous method, the 3 modules, and each module has these 5 actions you take. It's got a tick sheet for accountability and stuff to help you take the actions on a day-to-day basis that are going to make you feel better. It's fully supported, and you can start the program at any time. So the Feel Fabulous method can be started at any time, at a time that works for you. The minimum time you'll spend on each module is 2 weeks, but I often encourage women to go for a month on each module so that they really start to embed these habits on a day-to-day basis. It's just £37 a month to be part of the Feel Fabulous Club, but I do ask for a 6-month commitment, because when you give it 6 months, you get those simple actions in place that are going to help you to achieve this long-term, easier weight management, long-term feeling better in yourself, feeling fabulous, basically. And if you were interested, you can use the code MASTERCLASS to get a 10% discount. It says for the next 24 hours, but I've actually set the discount until Monday evening, so that you've got longer to decide if you did want to. And I'm just going to stick the link into the chat there if you want to go through and have a look at it in more detail. Now, what we do in the club, we have it's a live club, basically. It's run through a school community. I go in there daily with motivational posts, any education. I do little videos in there and all that kind of thing. We have a weekly live call on a Monday evening. There is a lot of content in there now from a knowledge perspective. So there's lots of webinars and things you can listen to. We have a big recipe bank with meal plans and stuff, which you can pick and choose. You don't have to follow them. It's a club that's designed to support women in midlife, to make them feel seen and heard, but equally as much not to lay down rules and regulations and stuff like that, to do it in a way that's going to work for you, basically, in your lifestyle. And I give full guidance all the time. There's no pressure, there's no judgment. We also have a monthly private call as well. So you can log in and just speak to me private on a one-to-one basis. But the weekly live calls are always quite lively, and there's lots of accountability and support within the club. Now, what we do within the club is, everybody contributes and supports each other. We do a liver cleanse, I mentioned that at the beginning, and a sugar-free week, and I do that once a quarter. So the next liver cleanse and sugar-free week starts on the 1st of June. So we do that once a quarter. So that just gives the liver an opportunity to function. It's not difficult to do. It's about eating good quality foods and keeping accountable and staying away from the sugar and stuff. But it's not about being completely sugar-free, because I'm not completely sugar-free. I love sugar. I really enjoy eating dark chocolate, and I like it if I go out for a meal every now and again, or I'm a bit of a sucker for a really nice cheesecake and stuff like that. So it's not about saying you can never have sugar. What we do is we focus on getting the blood sugar so balanced that you don't think about sugar anymore. You naturally reduce it without even thinking about it. So we do this liver cleanse. It's a really easy program to follow. The Feel Fabulous method is, and you can see here on the left-hand side, she said, memory and thinking are brighter and feeling really well indeed. She did the liver cleanse first of all, this lady, and then she lost 5 pounds in a week. That was actually not fat weight, that was liver weight, that was fluid weight that was being caught, that the liver was holding on to, basically, because it wasn't functioning effectively. The middle one, overall, I'm doing well. Blood pressure is down further, and I'm feeling really good. She was struggling with module 3, but she was feeling good, and she was ready to give her liver a little bit more support, and that was all done within this community. And then the last one was amazed after just a couple of weeks, my desire for sweet things has diminished. She didn't eat the chocolate cake. She weighed herself 1st of January. She was 13 stone 2. This was the 27th of February, I think it was. She was 12 stone 5, and still a way to go. But up until now, it's been effortless. And she just followed the Feel Fabulous method with the tick sheet, the accountability on a day-to-day basis, and found herself effectively managing her weight without even thinking about it. And this is the thing, we've tormented ourselves for so long as women around counting calories and why can't I do it and what's wrong with me and all that kind of thing. And what I want the Feel Fabulous Club to be is a really safe space for women just to have that conversation, to feel supported, and to know that some days are better than others. You'll have some days, good days, and have bad days. But to know that within that community, you can express that and then just draw a line under it and move on. So the Feel Fabulous Club, I absolutely love the club. I think it's a really lovely, safe space, and I want as many women to experience it as possible. So as I said, it's £37 a month for 6 months. If you use the code Masterclass, you get a 10% discount, and it's set until Monday evening, so you've got all the weekend to think about it. And I do actually offer as well an option to upgrade to a health assessment. And if someone has a health assessment with me and I create a bespoke report for them, they get the first month free within the Feel Fabulous Club as well. So it's something to think about. You can scan the QR code on the corner, or if you're listening on your phone, that's fine. I've shared it into the chat, but you will also get an email with a link through to have a look at it in more detail. So if anyone's got any questions, please do fit them in the chat now. But all that leads me to say is thank you so much for joining me this evening. Find me on Instagram, Sue Thomas Low Sugar Weight Loss, if you don't follow me already. And don't forget that 10% discount on the Feel Fabulous Club. Just use the word Masterclass, and that will give you a discount. And that 10% discount is all the way through for the 6 months. So let me just check and see if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, no worries. Thanks, Emma, for joining me live. If you've got any questions, drop me an email. You can see my email there, sue@suethomas.org. And and if you've got anything at all that you want to ask before you commit to the club, if you don't have to commit to the club, but if you decide that that's what you want to do drop me an email or just follow that link and have a look at the details. Thank you so much for joining me. I will speak to you all very soon. Take good care of yourself, and have a great rest of the evening and enjoy the sunshine that's coming. Take care. Bye.